all of a sudden we get there and it's just unreal, you know. She's just there on the bed, and I, like, you know, retracted to the furthest corner of the room because I just couldn't take it.
We did live in denial a lot. I think we just didn't talk about it very much. Didn't talk about the end.
And the doctor called us in and showed us what was there, and it was huge. It had come back.
I've learned a lot of life from losing my son.
Last time I saw him saw her was with our girls. It was trick or treat, and we knocked on the door, and they are all dressed up. So that was the last time she saw them all dressed up in their costumes for Halloween. And of course died the next day, which would have been, again, All Saints Day.
But it's just, it was one of those times when I was glad my God wasn't in charge of everything, and really glad my God was present in everything.
And what's so sad about it is, it was 5 girls and no boys. So after my mother died, my sister was our mother. So it's like losing two mothers at once.
And again, the same feeling just like when I was 15. What do I feel? What do I feel about my mother passing? I don't feel anything. And I wonder about that. Is this really unusual?
So, I'm fine. I'm fine. How many times have you heard I'm fine?
Leaving is just like leaving the hospital, like walking away and leaving her. It was just the craziest thing. And they call you like that. They called me just like that, you know. I'm getting calls. What do you want to do? Leave me alone. I don't know what I want to do. Leave me alone.
So I got down in the middle of the night and I prayed. Got down on my knees and I just said, Lord, I don't know how to pray.
And so when I walked in the room, they were working on her, and the nurse looked up and said, "What do you want us to do?" And I said, "Stop." You know, she didn't want to be resuscitated, and she was real clear on that. The way my mom put it was, "Don't make me be like Lazarus and have to die twice. If I die, you let me go, and you do whatever you need to deal with it, George."
We basically were the decision-making group, but it was very, I was very guilt-ridden about that. I didn't like that.
It made me angry because number one, her and my mother died at the same age. My mother was 42 and she was 42. And then it made me angry because when I would talk to her, she would tell me, if I ever end up like Mom, I just want to die. I don't want to be on a breathing machine. I just want to go. And I used to tell her stop talking like that, but she really talked out her death.
That we realized that was the time, and Sarah and I were there with her. And I still like to say God sent His angels to take her to heaven.
In the end, they couldn't fix it. He would have needed a transplant. And that brought up a whole lot of other issues, you know, like, okay, somebody has to die so my son can live. And that was, I don't know, I don't really know how to put that to words.
If we had not been in the room with him, and it had just happened, and he'd have passed on, you know, just naturally. But because he did start, we got him breathing again with very little effort. We just didn't know how bad he was ultimately.
I've grieved for other people before. The biggest grief I've ever had, as I've told you about, was my best friend who died suddenly in a car accident. He and I were very, very close. And I thought I understood grief before that, only to find out that I didn't know the first thing about it.
I took a picture of her hand, saw her hand, I held it, and it had a little tube in it, and I held it and I took a picture of it on my phone, which I don't have anymore, so I don't have that picture. And then I just kind of laid my head down on her stomach and just hugged her, and it was the craziest thing. You know, in those moments you think something, and I thought I felt her stomach raise, and I just I started screaming for help. I was like, come on, like, she's not gone, like, come back, you know, like, come here, you know, but it was pointless. I was wrong.
There was a point when I thought, and this was just shortly after my son died, that if I went back to the hospital, they were going to say, Linda, this was just a big joke. Here's your son back. We just wanted to see how you did with the death experience. I mean, that's how unbelievable that was.
And I remember that the first thing that I had to pass through was a long desert experience of nothingness, just nothing. Couldn't think, couldn't feel, and I thought maybe it was the same thing with Mom, but it's not.
I didn't go to any kind of a support group. They do have support groups for ALS, but frankly I didn't have time to go between working and then taking care of him, and still the kids, you know, like, were applying for college, and all this stuff was going on. They were in high school when he was really sick, so there was a lot of stuff to juggle. So I never went to any kind of a support group. It might have helped, but I don't know when I would have fit it in.
So it's one of those emotional paradoxes where I'm really glad I was able there to tell him to stop, and I really hate that I had to be the one to tell him to stop. It's really both exactly the same moment I was having that crisis.
The funny thing about it, by me working as a hospice aide, sometimes I feel like, you know, I walk in, I meet different people first, and I have different patients. And to know, my knowledge is they have 6 months expectancy to live, you know, and I had to come in and try to cheer them up and be happy for them, you know, but reality is, you know, that they're going to die in 6 months. Sometimes I find myself living or working as an actress for the simple fact is when I come in, I'm playing this role to keep their mind off of dying, you know, to give them hope, although some seem hopeless. You know, I try.
Because that was the first time I'd ever been with someone who watched them die, and it was it was just a holy moment. I mean, that's the only way I know to describe it. I mean, it's kind of hard to put into words the interaction between him and his son and his 2 daughters, and then with all of us, and he too was battling cancer, and the beauty about death, and I know that sounds a little bit morbid to some folks, but the beauty of death is that it really reminds us about life, and that certainly as a person of faith, I have hope, and that hope is renewed every time I experience that. Because to be with someone who is facing the end of their journey here on earth, and to see a peace about them, where every human rational thought would be to fight this to the absolute max, but to see them with a peace, you know, it's a reminder to me that there is more to this life than what we live here.
I realized, you know, I can't just sit around and kill myself every day over this. You know, she gave me 20 years of her life. I gave her 20 years of mine, and she raised me well, and she made me strong, and she raised me to be able to handle this and take care of myself.